calendars for an extraordinary day of unity and spiritual elevation. Congregation Beit D.C.B. invites you to the annual Unity Shabbat Kum on Saturday, May 24th, 2025. Where? At Shelf Lofts, Brooklyn, 120 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. This day is dedicated to praising and glorifying the Most High Yah, bringing together congregations, guests, and truth seekers in a celebration of unity, love, peace, and harmony. Join us for heartfelt prayers, inspiring teachings, and uplifting music that will resonate with your soul. Be part of this transformative experience that strengthens our community bonds and deepens our spiritual connections. For more information and to reserve your spot, call us at 347-622-9090 or email us at info@baitdcb.org. Let's come together in faith and fellowship at the Unity Shabbat Kum. You won't want to miss it. Shalom.
By the rivers of Babylon, yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
3:20 and Shalom family, welcome once again. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation Beit CHOKMAH BINAH, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for life and for all things and everything. Also, giving due respect to the leader of our congregation, even my brother, Chief Prince Yediel Ben Yissaschar. Also praying that the Most High God be with each and every one of you. Early Shabbat Shalom to all of you. We glorify the name of this great King. And every time we come on, we try to enlighten you on things that you might not know. Not taking for granted your knowledge, but, you know, sometimes we might miss things here and there. And that's what programs like this are for. So today we will be going over the Sidra Emor. And for that, I'll pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God, my forefathers, God Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform I'm on, the D.C.B. channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yediel Ben Yissaschar, to the host, Chief Uziel, to the Prince's Chief Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters and visitors to the channel. I greet you all and to my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to start off with Adonai Septadi Takufiyagi Tiatheaka. Oh Lord, open my lips and mouth should declare the praise. And appreciate all those that tune in. All I do is highlight, you know, my aim is to highlight certain points of interest, not necessarily sharing, you know, new information, but highlighting points of interest, you know, to stimulate discussion, hopefully inspiring and motivating at times, you know, that I'll be able to share. So with that, we'll be touching on a different portion in Leviticus, the 21st chapter, and it would go all the way to the end of the 24th chapter, which is a very interesting portion of our laws, and there's a unique opening in it. Now, last time we were speaking about some of the, you know, a lot of the things of holiness and requirements of, you know, Kohanim, and we're starting to go further into it. Different topics concerning the Kohanim. So we know automatically that you know, we had a lot of laws that was being taught on the other side of the Jordan before we even got into the land. And just for a point of interest, you know, we got to bear in mind that we got a lot of these laws early. And, you know, it didn't take 40 years to get the majority of these laws. Now, certain laws, as we, you know, come into in a short period of time, about the law of inheritance. Now, that's laws like that come in like in the 40th year. That was instituted into our way of life. And thankful to the daughters of Shalom, those 5 daughters whose names are given there. So what we're going to speak on, is this particular opening here in the 21st chapter of Leviticus. And the Haftorah, also the Haftorah that goes along with in the book of Ezekiel. I'm not going to speak on it much because it's a lot to be detailed within the book of Ezekiel. He also focused on the Kohanim, and also their functions and stuff. So this, what we learn here is that the Kohanim in our way of life is actually the main people in which the highest spiritual person in our nation is the Kohanim. All right. So when we learn about their function, the Kohanim in our way of life is like sort of like a separate group, but yet we know they are the line tribe of Levi and stuff like that, and they're also descendants of Aaron. So and the 2 sons later on, Eleazar and Ithamar, we know Nadab and Abihu died childless, and they had no descendants. So it opens up like this, and the Lord said unto Moses, speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them. Now the word Emor is an unusual term, in the Hebrew text when you use the term Emor. So I just want to bring out the opening in this particular portion of Leviticus, the 21st chapter. All right, so I just want to read the first line, as it states in the Hebrew. It's saying, "Wayamer Adonai el Moshe Emor." So it used to turn, why, your mayor, which is, and to say, Adonai, to Moses and say to Hakononim b'nei Aharon. So that's an unusual term, and then it goes on, and continue to say, where Ma'ata Elohim leneshfesh lo yitma be'amai. So, which is in the translation, and the Lord spoke to Moses, and speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them that there should none be defiled himself for the dead among his people. Now, we hear terms like daber, which means to actually speak, and it's firm. It's really firm. That's intense. And we also have, another term, which means to tell, which is even more firm, but to say more because it can be a sensitive topic, and the Creator shows compassion for even those that's near, in such a spiritual leadership. See, there's a thing about 2 types of leaders, in our way of life. One is a civil leader and one is a spiritual leader. So, the Kohanim, would be actually the spiritual leader. And we know the king would be more of the civil leader. And in the spiritual side, the spiritual leader have such a high criteria. You notice that that's the first major leadership that's actually set up by the Creator. It's actually, with the institution is the spiritual side of us, because that is basically what we're supposed to develop. And I'll be talking around that point as I go further. And now it's talking about for the dead. Now, we should have compassion. And the Creator saying, knowing about the compassion, it's like saying, how could I say this without really, really hurting you that much, because it's a very sensitive subject when you use the term Emor. But it's so important because of the institution that that you are installed in, and that you got to function and operate within on behalf of the people. That it must be said about purity. See, a lot of times we can a person sometimes we consider holiness and righteousness as one and the same. Now, sometimes a person might be righteous in a sense, but he might not be holy. And righteousness is basically how you deal with individuals, But then when you talk about holiness, sanctity, there's a whole another area then, because now are you, considered the individual that's sanctified by the Creator, and usually in order to be holy too, you're still going to be doing some, acting in a certain moral standard, in most cases. Now, and the reason I just want for you to further discuss, those topics, because certain animals that might be dedicated is holy to the Lord. But then what is their moral status? The righteousness don't apply to that. So a lot of times we surmise a person that's holy as, or something that's holy is always righteous. And righteousness is how you deal with one another and, in your actions, But when they talk about, holiness, it's like you separate it for a particular unique purpose. So, and hence we don't have a sense of, of holiness and actuality until we find the first time we find a sense of holiness in the Tanakh. Now I'm not saying it was some holy things done as we consider and look back, but the first time we actually find a sense of holiness in the Tanakh is when Moses was told, to take off his shoes because he's standing on holy ground. Now, mind you, the patriarchs did sacrifices, what you call Yaakov marked a stone, pour oil on the stone and stuff. And he had the Kolam Salam, which is the dream of the ladder. So, those are, we would consider, holy location, holy spots, and where Isaac himself being up on Mount Moriah. So we might consider those things in that area there. But until we find Moses encountering the Creator in the actual the account of the burning bush, we really don't see anything in that sense can relate to holiness. And go even further to think about, say, well, okay, did I ever even hear about holiness in any other doctrine prior to that? So, and that's what fascinates me more when I study and be able to share sometimes in the Tanakh when I'm highlighting certain points. It's because that I find so many first things that helps elevate the human, the human heart and values from studying Torah and going over it, that we say, okay, there's no denying Abraham's a great man. There's no denying Enoch was a great man. No denying Moses was a great man. But why is it now, later on, we're talking about institutions of holiness, institution of repentance, those type of things, separation and stuff. So this is a unique journey when we go to the book of Vayikra, that we learn and step into a realm that people if prior to that, and have no accounting of that. So I think and that should make people more exciting to say, okay, now I'm on my journey to understand and pursue what holiness is, as well as being righteous. So as we go forward, and it says, there shall none. Somebody read that part again. All right. And there shall none defile himself for the dead among his people, except for his kin that is near unto him, for his mother, and for his father, and for his son, and for his daughter, and for his brother, and for his sister, a virgin that is near unto him, that hath no husband, for her may he defile himself. He shall not defile himself, being a chief man among his people, to profane himself. They shall not make baldness upon their head, neither shall they shave off the corners of their beard, nor make any cuttings in their flesh. These are different mourning rites that they had in antiquity. So it goes, and when you look at the list very carefully, it goes in the order of, emotional closeness. Mother, because that's the one you notice first. That's the one that supply your needs. You're introduced to the rest of the people in your household from the standpoint of your mother. So that's the first one. So it's so closeness and touch. You become so touched to that said you can't. You could defile yourself for that. That's a near kin. All right, and this is a regular period, and it goes on to say, it goes in order. Your father, and people these days don't consider their father as much, in these days and times. But, according to, the normality of decency is usually, the mother, your father, and then it goes on to tell you, how a person's emotions actually works, your son, and it's talking to the priest who happened to be a male. So this is usually the value system of a man in life as far as closeness goes. Now, mind you, he can have love for all of them, but it points out a value system of closeness, of emotions, in a man, because all priests going to be men. So, and just something that you might want to explore a little more. All right. In the 6th verse, it says, they shall be holy unto their God, and not profane the name of their God, for the offering of the Lord made by fire, the bread of their God, do they offer. Therefore they shall be holy. They shall not take a woman that is a harlot. Right. So we know what a harlot is, lady of the night, that, out there, get values. I mean, monetary values. Profane, someone that, might have been actually abused and, had, encounters where they was kind of forced into a situation. Neither shall they take a woman put away from her husband, for he is holy unto his God. Thou shalt sanctify him therefore, for he offereth the bread of thy God. He shall be holy unto thee. For I, the Lord, who sanctify you, am holy. And the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the harlot, she profaneth her father, she shall be burnt with fire. All right. Some of these laws in these days time seem kind of strong, but we're talking about holiness, and we're talking about the one who knows all consider all emotion, and it has more compassion than anybody we can even compare to, which is uncomparable to the Most High. So when we look at this opening here, All right. It makes it very, very, very clear. All right. And to talk about who he can't marry. All right. Now, what's interesting, what's missing from this list is a widow. You know, that's what's missing. So that means that a harlot is definitely out. All right. A woman that's profaned, been abused, whatever, sexually is out. And then a divorce, a garusha. A widow is not mentioned here. Well, there's several reasons, but you discuss this. So that means a widow is even on a higher status. And so it's definitely held on a higher status than these women right here. Not that you might not have compassion for them or mercy for individuals, but so women get divorced. She get divorced. Maybe the husband just was no good. Maybe he was no good. And he didn't recognize the greatness of the woman that he had, and he said, "Oh, look, and he can't get along right off." Or the woman was, causing so much problems in his life, whatever the case is, and some really unseemly things, whatever we know what could go on these days and times, and he said, "Look, it's best we go our separate ways because it's going to be a problem." So he writes her up. But now, if she's a good woman, he wrote her up, her status being that he's saying, well, why a divorce? She could have been a good woman. The Creator don't see her as a good woman in that sense. And she had another man anyway, but yet a widow could have had another man as well. So then you might want to discuss those points. If she's a widow, she had another man, but she's not prohibited from marrying, a regular priest. But yet, a divorced woman could have been married and might even still be a virgin. And once she got married and he divorced her, that's it. Her status changed, drastically. So these are some things you might want to discuss, because I know today, we got so many different, emotions just traveling over the internet and stuff like that. But this is how the Creator see it fit for one of the holiest persons in our nation as Israelites. And it goes on to say, and the priest that is highest amongst his brethren, they're talking about the high priest, upon whose head the anointing oil is poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not let the hair of his head go loose, nor rend his clothes, neither shall he go into any dead body. All right, so he's even restricted even more. Now, mind you, at the time when this law is coming out, all of them, Aaron and his sons, had the anointing oil on them. So the only, according to tradition, we know, Eleazar had a son already, that was pretty much grown in the wilderness, because when Aaron got his, commission, he's 83 years old. So, his sons, you can have grandsons and everything like that, a lot younger. So we know automatically that for his older sons not to have any heirs, that's something you could discuss further. But one of the things is that the high priest himself, so that means these first Kohanim, that was all of them was anointed just like their father, but Aaron was being their father, was the high priest. And yet after that, you're only going to have one anointing for a high priest. Everybody else is born a priest, but you're anointed as the high priest from going forward. I want to just bring out a couple more things in here that's important, that I find interesting. All right. So let his hair go loose, nor rend his clothes. Neither shall he go into any dead body, nor defile himself for his father or for his mother. Now, you say, well, why the role is reversed here? it says for his father or for his mother. All right. And with the regular priest, they could go, but they talk about their emotion, how they feel. So concerning that. So now when we get to the high priest, is it about emotion that he feel closer now since he's a high priest to his father than his mother? And one of the views is that it was his father status that allowed him to be high priest. His father had passed on, so therefore he stepped into his father's place to be high priest. So, which it's a unique thing, which I'm just going to share. Just leave that, leave something on the table for you to discuss going forward. Is that 40 years, in the 40th year in the wilderness, when Rosh Chodesh, I'll be in the month of the 5th month, came around. One of the interesting things, and just something to discuss, and research more. Aaron was told to go up on Mount Hor and die. But when he went up there, his son, Eleazar went with him, and Moshe. And the clothes that Aaron had was taken off and put on his son. And then he died commanding the Creator. And you would say, okay, was that a funeral? Was that the burial? How would you view that? I'm going to leave that open for discussion in that sense. But I just wanted to bring that point out for you to discuss, amongst yourselves, and your teachers, and take it to your teachers and see what you come up with that uniqueness when we read in this particular law here. And this particular law is being told to Aaron and his sons. And we know that a man don't usually bury themselves, Okay. So when we go further, and after you talk about, father and mother, then it goes even, let me pick up from here. Neither shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his God, for the consecration of anointing oil is on his, oil of his God is upon him. I am the Lord. So the Creator saying, look, this is my rule, my stand, that's it. And he shall take a wife in her virginity, a widow, or one divorced, or profane woman, or a harlot, these shall he not take, but a virgin of his own people shall he take to wife, and he shall not profane his seed among his people, for I am the Lord who sanctify him. So sanctity comes from God. That's what we learned already. But now it mentions he's not even allowed to marry a widow, not the regular priest, but the high priest. So now if you know that your family life should be started most appropriately before, if you're in line at the high priest, your family planning is actually who you're going to marry within the nation. That's your family planning already. The first beginning of your family planning is who I'm going to marry in the nation. I can't marry, say a Syrian. I can't marry, an Egyptian. I can't marry anybody that's a Midianite. I can't marry those people. Though Midian's descendants are, I can't marry them. I can't marry an Ishmaelite. I can't marry an Edomite. I must marry within the 12 tribes of Israel. Hence, Aaron's wife was from the tribe of Judah. So we learned those different things there. So now, as you go forward, and then I just want to finish this part off because there's a couple other points I want to highlight within here. And it deals with priesthood blemishes and stuff like that. So I want to bring out this here. And also spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron, saying, whosoever be of thy seed throughout their generations that have a blemish, let him not approach to offer the bread of his God. For whatsoever man he be that has a blemish, he shall not approach a blind man, which is very obvious in that sense, or a lame, or he that have anything maimed, or anything too long, or a man that is broken-footed, or broken-handed, or crook-back, or a dwarf, or he that hath his eyes overspread, or a scab, or scurvy, or have his stones crushed. No man of the seed of Aaron, the priest, that has a blemish, shall come nigh to offer the offerings of the Lord made by fire. He hath a blemish. He shall not come nigh to offer the bread of his God. He may eat the bread of his God, both of the most holy and of the holy. Only he shall not go in unto the veil, nor come nigh unto the altar, because he have a blemish, that he profane not my holy place. For I am the Lord who sanctified them. So Moses spoke unto Aaron and to his sons and to all the children of Israel. Now that last verse, I'm gonna bring out a couple of things here because there's so much here. But I'll ask you to bear with me for a minute because a lot of stuff going on in this picture Emor is saying. But one of the things that when we look at that, if you're born a certain way, let's say scoliosis with the back and everything like that, or hunchback and stuff, you had no say so on that. And you would say, if my father is a Kohen, why would God allow me to be born maimed? My father's a priest. Why would I be born maimed? In this sense, where I can't function as a priest to the degree the main function which to offer up. The main function to be able to present the bread of my God. The main function, be able to be around the altar. And even I can't even assist around the altar simply because I got a physical blemish. Who's to say what I got? I can't. My height. I didn't have no say so about my height. You know what I mean? So if I was born too short or born extra lanky, I had no say so about that. But yet I'm a Kohen, true, but I can't function to the fullest of a Kohen. And the stones, wounded in my stones is maimed, then how would be the inspection? How who doing that kind of inspection? So it's a lot of sensitivity about perfection that the Creator brings out, and the Creator, and what is so strange when we look at it at the very end of it, and that's what I said. I want to look at that last thing when we talk about the functions of it, is that it said Moses spoke to Aaron and to his sons and to all Israel. That means everybody in the nation know who will be disqualified from doing certain things. And yet, you say, well, you could be wondering what happened in the family. What brought this here tragedy then? Because he's born into the most royal spiritual segment of Israel, and yet he got a boundary that's even brought back because of his because of its physical blemish, mumim. And one of the things about a mumim is they have what they call mnemonics. Mnemonics is basically words that you use to try to remember certain things. Use other words to try to remember certain things, bring out certain insights rather. And when you think about 124 Pasukim, verses and stuff within the particular Sidra of this particular Emor, is that normally when you think about Aaron, Aaron lived to be 123. And we always talk about the certain things. I'm going to talk about other things here, which I might touch on a little bit, is that at 123, that's where he lived to be, at the age of 123 when he died. And you have an interesting word, which is nega. Nega, is actually spelled with a nun, a gimel, and an ayin. That's the word nega. And it means, a plague in a sense. And when we're going to get into other stuff within this particular chapter, I'm going a little bit ahead, just to make you aware of it. But a plague. And usually, we was reading earlier, if a person had Sarai, who looks at him? The Kohen. Who proclaim him either clean or unclean of the Sarai, the Kohen. And yet, they could also be subject to certain things as we go forward, within there. And Aaron himself, who lived to be 123, nega, it's the negative, but it's another word that has the same exact letters in it, which is called oneg, which is the light. Oneg is spelled with the same exact letters, just that it's spelled ayin, nun, gimel. All that sums up to 123, the age, of Aaron's age when he passed on, 123. And Aaron lived long enough and full enough to be able to, call and recognize a plague, and also to be able to delight to bring someone back that had a particular blemish or plague. But even if it's in a household, one that can call normally a plague can be plagued with certain things to disqualify themselves. As we go further and talk about but the last verse, the children of Israel, why we need to know. We're the only people in the planet that know what the priests do and don't have to be a priest. We know how the priest is supposed to function, what his job is, job role description, and we don't be a priest. That's so that we can help them be better at what they do. How can we help them? By not defiling them, always taking precaution for them. And I'll give you a little insight. It's some of y'all might have been aware of people in your lives, when you say, oh, Friday, Shabbat, sundown. So, in the wintertime, sun go down, kind of early. So you might went to the synagogue. They don't know whether you went to the synagogue or not, but they see you, coming back home and it's dark. And they believe upon themselves. Wow, I thought you're not supposed to be outside, on Friday night at all. You're supposed to be staying in the house. So they, in a innocent way, is watching you and somewhat somewhat trying to saying, I think you're doing something out of order. Cause I know this is supposed to be a holy time for you between, sundown on Friday. So why are you out here in the street? Now, I'm not down with this here, stuff that you're in. I don't do what you do, but I got an idea what you're supposed to do. And it seems like you out of character. Not that I'm adopting it to me, that I'm looking out for you. And that's what people would do in the street. I thought you don't do this, or you eat a certain thing. Say, well, I thought you don't eat so-and-so. Why are you eating it? I thought that was against your religion. So here it is. We as a nation, we help safeguard the institution that's supposed to help us get closer to God. So we have the knowledge of what they're supposed to do, even if we're not allowed to do it in that sense. So, and the priest, his greatness is based on the greatness of the people that support him. And the same thing with leadership. The greatness of a leader is based on the people. That's the greatness of the people that supports him. If you got people that it don't give you any kind of support, anything in that level, then you're basically a leader of nothing. But when people support you, help you, they make you much more of a greater leader when they assist you in doing your job the best they can. All right. So this is one of the things. And another thing I like to bring out is that if God sanctified them, then how did these guys come up with these blemishes? That's something you might want to talk about. All right. And it talks about the uncleanness of the priest and the uncleanness. And when we go into the 22nd chapter, all right, it says, whosoever he be of the seed throughout the generation that approach unto the holy things, which the children of Israel hallow unto the Lord, having his uncleanness upon him, that soul shall be cut off from before me. I am the Lord. And what man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper, or has an issue, he shall not eat of holy things until he be clean. Whosoever touches anyone that is unclean by the dead, or from whomsoever the flow of seed goes out, or whosoever touches any swarming thing, whereby he may be made unclean, or a man of whom he may take uncleanness, whatsoever uncleanness he hath, the soul that touches any such shall be unclean until evening, and shall not eat of the holy things unless he bathe with flesh and water. And when the sun is down, he shall be clean, and afterwards he may eat of the holy things. All right, so there's just some areas there. I'm not going to focus much on that because that's not going to be my major topic today. But and it tells you about who could eat of the holy things in the book. But it talks about the priest being unclean. And imagine you call out Zera'at in some people, and yet you could get Zera'at in your immediate family. Now we know the case of Miriam, but to my knowledge, and I don't know of any Kohen that ever gotten Zera'at. Now I could be wrong in that. If anybody know, you could just leave it in the chat. But I don't know of any Kohen that ever had, that's recorded that had Zera'at. That what we call leprosy. So I'm gonna skip over here in a little time, okay? And if you offer, but one of the things is that if you offer enough sacrifice without blemish, then surely the offerer should be without blemish himself, be a whole man. And one of the things that we learn here, if you violate those precepts, now normally when God cuts you off, he cuts you off from your people, but not him. But if a Kohen desecrate the holy thing, he can never, ever, ever, work as a Kohen again. Even though he probably, be still, recognized as, but God said he's cut off from being a Kohen, and if he's cut off from a Kohen, that means that even the stuff that he normally would eat, he couldn't eat anymore. Whereas the guy that have a blemish, he could still eat up the holy stuff. But a guy that violates something that's going on, as a Kohen, then when God cut you off, and he said he's cutting you off from the priesthood. You're born that, but God said you cut off from that. So your status as a priest to do anything is over with because you had disrespect for the sanctity of what God has said is holy. So that's something to consider. So now, and I just want to in this moment, just talk a little bit about how Torah goes on in the book of Ezekiel without, focuses on it in depth. You notice that when the kingdom was split, and they talk about certain things, he was talking about the temple in the future, the last days, and he has certain restrictions that we don't have here. So they had a problem with the book of Ezekiel being even, canonized because of those different criteria that's different from in the book of Leviticus, which we read now. So you might want to go over that. But one thing, but one thing he brings out is that the line of Zadok that kept the charge of the Lord, they will be actually the high priest of the future, the line of Zadok. Now we know Pinchas, which is centuries earlier, was promised an everlasting priesthood. So that means that anybody was out the line of Pinchas, would have been actually the actual heirs to the high priesthood. Now, when it comes to the thing of when Solomon fired one priest and kept the other one there was co-regents. You had Zadok was loyal, he kept him there, and Zadok supported Solomon and even anointed Solomon in his reign. But why would they Ezekiel focus on Zadok, which was was basically centuries prior to his actual exodus to go, being drawn into captivity in Babylon. And one of the things you've got to look at is this, that Zadok, when the kingdom was split in Rehoboam time, which is the son of Solomon, and that's when just go up just a little bit with that. When the kingdom was split in Rehoboam time, that you had 10 tribes to the north, under Jeroboam, and you only had 2 tribes, and you had the temple in the south, so you had Benjamin and Yehudah in the south. So the priests and Levitical order was spread out through all 12 tribes. So now, if all 12 tribes supported the priests, the Levites and the priests, and you say, okay, I only got 2 tribes in the south, 10 tribes in the north. So when the split come, now when the tribes in the north split, Jeroboam built 2 calves, had a whole lot of adultery, idol worshiping. So now, if you're going to be a Kohen, if your revenue come from the people, what you going to do? You're going to work in this idol worshiping shrine, or you're going to just go ahead and say, look, I'm going to make another way out of it. And so some people, when the kingdom split, some Levitical Kohanim went and say when they came back to the south, to Yehudah, because they ain't going to work in the idol worshiping shrine. And yet, some did work in the shrine because they said, I got to make a living. So the sons of Zadok themselves, they stayed loyal, and if it took 12 to support one tribe, 2 could support the whole tribe of Levi. But so some people had to do what they had to do without violating. So, and so, this is some of the historical things that's dealing with our way of life. And that's one of the things that you find, in the Haftorah, the book of Ezekiel, that's something to pay close attention to and discuss more, because the Kohen revenue is based on the people, doing what they're supposed to do. So I'm gonna skip through that because there's a couple of other things I want to bring out. And I'm going to the 23rd chapter. Just going to the 23rd chapter just to skip through a lot of this. All right, the 23rd chapter covers all the days we observe, and then I'm only going to touch on a few of them. I'm not even going to do the whole 23rd because I want to get to the end of this particular portion. And it says, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, the appointed seasons of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my appointed seasons. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, and holy convocation. You should do no manner of work. It is a Sabbath unto the Lord in all your dwellings. So it starts off, now we're allowed, to recognize the Shabbat. We're allowed to participate, and it says the appointed season of of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Now, the first thing we got to understand here that do we proclaim, and that's a question, which can we actually proclaim the Shabbat to be a holy convocation? Or can we proclaim the Shabbat to be holy? That's a question. Because we read back in Genesis that God has sanctified, and we read that he made it holy. So can we proclaim that? That's something to think about, because some people might think you can, so, for discussion. But it's written here, and it has a lot of various, they have different, views in reference to why the statement is worded in that particular fashion. But, that's just something, they could go forward on. I'm welcome, conversations in reference to that. All right. And then, but the Shabbos be done in all your dwellings, wherever you're at. And then it goes on after it stops there in the 4th verse. It says, these are the appointed seasons of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim at their appointed season. All right. So now the whole topic from appointed seasons, the Lord which you proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my appointed seasons. And then it talks about the work and everything like that, and it mentions one as a Shabbat. But here it said these are the ones you're supposed to proclaim. All right. So now what we have is the ability. When we get into this, we read all this here. I'm just going to go a little bit fast in reference to that. When we read through the 23rd chapter, is that we have the ability to actually say, all right, this is the time for Pesach. Now, God gave us the month and the date. We got to say, all right, this is the season for it. And we recognize it to be holy, because this is the season on this particular month, on this particular date. So this is something, because we proclaim the new moon. We call out the new moon, and the Rosh Chodesh, as they would say. All right. And it goes on to say, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at dusk, is the Lord's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month, is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. And the first day you shall have a holy convocation, and shall do no manner of servile work. And you shall bring an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. And the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no manner of work, servile work. So now, that's talking about the Pesach. Now, what's interesting, most times when we read certain sidros, it does, it don't fit all the time with our calendar activity in the calendar year. And when we read most of the sidros, a lot of times when we read Pesach, we're reading it, most times before Pesach, we're reading about, Pesach. And we, read about any other holy days. And most times we don't be in sync with the activity of the season, the month or the calendar year that's going on. When we're reading about it, going by this, Sidra, from Genesis to, Bazola Baraka, and so we actually just if that holy day or something come up, then we talk about it then. But now, as we get ready to go into this next portion of this here, this is one of the few times that we actually be doing something while we're reading about it at the same time, which is we're going to deal with the Omer. And that's the only time actually that I could think of out the year that we actually reading something in a sequence that coincide with the activity that we actually doing at the time. which is counting the Omer. And I'm gonna focus on a lot about the Omer because one young lady, Rabbi Malka, she gave a real dynamics talk on Lag BaOmer concerning manna, relationship to manna, and the counting of the Omer itself, which was very, very enlightening. So, I mean, those that missed it, missed a real dynamic devar in reference to that. But one thing I'm not going to try to reproduce what she said in full. But I'm just going to highlight certain things that is very necessary to be discussed concerning this particular period we're getting ready to get into right now. So now it says, all right, after we finish me in the ninth verse. All right, so that means the first day of Chokmah, it's no work. All right. And usually it's in Pesach night, and then which is start actually the 15th. All right. Oh, and by the way, just while I'm passing on it, we had like a Pesach Shani that just comes within the month of YAH itself, and I'm going to speak on reference to that as well in the Pesach Shani. and then it goes on to say in the ninth verse. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, say unto them, When you come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then you shall bring the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. And in the end of the day, when he waved the sheaf, you shall offer a he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And a meal offering thereof shall be 2/10 parts of an ephah of fine flour, mingled with oil, offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor, and a drink offering there shall be a wine, the 4th part of a hin, and it shall eat neither bread nor parched corn nor fresh ears until this same day, until you have brought the offering of your God. It is a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. All right. So now we have something that goes on that going to lead me into my discussion. All right. That when we deal with the actual Pesach, say that morning when we made the wave offering, we the first harvest we have is the barley harvest. I've had to read this through so that way I could just talk without reading. But like you go back over it because I'm gonna do more talking than reading in this particular portion. It said, it said, and it shall count unto you from the morrow after the day of the rest, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 weeks shall there be complete, even unto the morrow after the 7th week, and ye shall number 50 days, and ye shall present a new meal offering unto the Lord. Ye shall bring out of your dwellings 2 wave loaves of 2/10 parts of an ephah. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven for first fruits unto the Lord. And ye shall present with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock and 2 rams, and they shall be a burnt offering unto the Lord with a meal offering, and ye shall drink and their drink offering, even an offering made by fire of sweet savor unto the Lord. And ye shall offer 1 he goat for a sin offering, and 2 he lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offering. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruits for a wave offering before the Lord. And the 2 lambs, they shall be holy to the Lord for the priest. And ye shall make proclamation on the self-same day. There shall be a holy convocation unto you, and shall do no manner of servile work It is a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Now, I want to just stop. That's as far as I'm going to go in this particular chapter. But I want to read that through and then elaborate a little bit on it. When we count from tomorrow after the Pesach, barring all the arguments that might come up, and when I say it in that fashion, is that we're counting. They say we're counting the Omer. The Omer is actually the sheep that we bring up, but the first crops that actually come up is the barley. That's the first crops. Barley is usually animal fodder. Now we have one ritual, within the Tanakh that we use. The barley is used in part of a ritual, and that's basically, dealing with the sotah. But for the most part, barley is not what we make bread out of. So the first thing to ripen is the barley, and we bring up the two sheaves on the, on that day, and tomorrow after the Pesach, we bring up the two sheaves, wave that, then that's it. So now, when we talk about the barley, and then we're supposed to start to count. We count 7 weeks. We count, so we count the Omer. But when we count the Omer, we're not counting towards Shavuot. Those Shavuot are going to be there. We're not actually counting, though most of us might say, we're counting, and then when we get to 50, that'd be Shavuot. So we aiming at Matan Torah, that when we reach Mount Sinai, when God, make that revelation, when we actually complete the weeks. But what we're actually doing is counting away from the time we wave the Omer. So that's why it's called counting the Omer, because we constantly saying how far we left from the first wave offering of the Omer. So it's not focusing on the destination up ahead, or the destination up ahead, which is what we call Kal Kashvuot. We're focusing on what we had left from, so that brings a lot of insight concerning the Pesach, the Exodus, and also that God is providing for us, at that time. So one of the things that was brought out, and one of our presenters, which is Rabbi Malka, brought out greatly, and she brought out that thing about manna. Now, within the month of Iyar, we had the exact date when manna come, which is basically 3 days before, what we consider Lag BaOmer, which was the 15th. So we know when manna started, and manna, and like it was brought out, that manna is one of the things. There's a lot of miracles involved with it, but it's one of those things when you collect the Omer, that those that went and collected more only had Omer, and those collected less had Omer, but no one actually couldn't violate that particular command. And not, that they didn't try, because even we know later on, people went out looking for it on the day they wasn't supposed to look at it. And also the manna was tied to Shabbat. So we're dealing with the manna. We within that particular time, within this county, we actually, it was tied to the Shabbat. Now, another thing to bear in mind, while we're learning about this law, we're not able to perform it at this time because we're still in the wilderness. So certain things, that we can't present, certain laws that we learned was only theoretical laws. So that's important to recognize. But now, to get in the counting what we're actually doing, we're actually developing ourselves and constantly reminding ourselves that God is providing for us and sustaining us, even then in the wilderness at that time, because we basically was eating manna only 30 days outside of Egypt in that second month. And you have a Pesach Sheni that actually comes in actually on the day, that manna was actually first instituted, which is interesting because you talk about unleavened bread, but yet you have manna being, coming down on 30 days later. And that's when you have also Pesach Sheni, which is, basically the 14th, at dusk, which would be the 15th. And that's when the manna came the 15th day. So it's very interesting, to discuss as we go forward. But what we also was focusing on is our development. So a lot of us use certain aspects of development in character, in dealing with our emotions and stuff of that nature. You're talking about, different things like, Kesef, Gabor, Teferet, and et cetera, and you got 7 people that, so 7 different attributes of the heart, and you got 7 different people that's related to the attributes in the heart. You got Abraham, you got, Isaac, you got Jacob, then you got Joseph, you got Aharon, Moses, you got Aharon, and then you got Dawi for representing Malkut. So you have all those different aspects of different people that will represent those particular things that they drew from in development, and then as far as character. And one of the things we learned when we, that when we talk about the 7 weeks, at that time, it's saying, okay, that is an actual a completed time for us. So the number 7 is very significant for us in our way of life. And and as we count the Omer, it's a command to count the Omer, and it's a command to count it as an individual. And it's a command, that you count not only the weeks, but you also got to count the day of the Omer, and usually count it at night. So this is something that's important, anticipate, because you're constantly remembering where you came from, not necessarily focus on where you're going, but remember, like I used to like this saying that I used to hear a lot of people say, old times say, the Lord brought me from a mighty, mighty, mighty long way. They say it like that because they thinking about where they started from and how God sustained them throughout that period of time. And just to be brief, I'm looking at my time here. I was going to share a lot more in this particular episode with the count of the Omer itself. But one of the things that we learn is that then when we get to the other part of the 50, we're talking about wheat, the wheat harvest. But one of the things about the Omer, what we learn from the Omer is that we can't eat of any grain. And that's what I shared before I move on to my last little portion. And we can't eat any grain until we make the wave offering of that particular grain. Now, we had a lot of discussions concerning Joshua in the book of Joshua, when they ate the produce of the land, when manna stopped and everything like that, and they ate the produce of the land. But I'm not going to focus on that now. If you have any questions, you can always leave it in the chat. But we just, me and certain people, we had that discussion earlier. But one of the things is that we look at is that where leaven is prohibited, leaven is mandatory in the wave loaves later on. And I know they got a lot of different customs and different, congregations amongst the Israelite community. So I'm not going to, focus on their customs and, whatever they do, that what they do. But I try to share certain insight that we did. And in the book, I tell you how the bread is made and what it's made from. And also, you got the size of it. And it's all one type of bread, not a bunch of different multi types of bread. But one of the things we learn from that is that if you can't eat of the produce of the land until the wave off, and then when you go back to Deuteronomy, the 16th chapter, and you compare the 13th and 8th verse and stuff like that, when you talk about eating unleavened bread for 7 days and one is saying eating for 6 days. Yeah, old grain you eat for 7 days. New grain, you're only going to have a chance to eat it 6 days within that week, because you have to make the wave offering of something in your produce. But what's interesting is that if you didn't make a wave offering, for something, if that wasn't done, Bring a full wave offering, bring that up with a priest to make the wave offering of it. You couldn't eat of that grain, period. Now, you might use it for sacrifice, but the grain is, when you bring the wave offering, you actually take away some of the prohibition of sanctity, where you're prohibited from eating of it. Once you bring up the wave offering, if you don't bring up the wave offering of the sheep, of the barley, then you can never use that for your personal stuff. You could bring it to the sanctuary, the Mishkan or the temple, but you could never use it unless that was done. And now when it gets to the wave loaves itself, that when you had to do certain sacrifice, you could do that prior to, say you had some wheat that came up early, and yet you didn't bring, because you have a certain time to bring the wave loaves. Well, when you bring those wave loaves, you say you have to make a offering. Maybe in certain offerings you got to have, a menka offering. Certain type of menka offerings. You're allowed to do that with that particular thing early, all right, and bring that up. But when it comes down to the barley thing, stuff like that, you can't do that at all with that. So the whole thing is whole sanctified grain at that time. And you might want to discuss it more with your various teachers, but pay closer attention to the reading and how it's operated within the text. I just want to move on to two more little points, and I'll be pretty much apologetic in reference to not being able to go through all this here. But one thing when you talk about, we got all the days that we observe within this particular chapter, Leviticus 23rd chapter. So a lot of times when I used to come up and say I need a letter to be off on Shabbat, so I don't have to work on Shabbat and the holy days. I always say we observe all the laws of Moses, that's in the holy days that's mentioned in the book of Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, because it covers all portion of the Leviticus 23rd chapter, which is Yom Teruah, and also the first day of Sukkot, and also Shemini Atzeret. That's called Shabbaton. And in this particular chapter, it's interesting, to be noted at. And as we go forward into the chapter, we find about the showbread and stuff like that. We read about that in the particular Sidra and more. So, and, the 12 loaves of showbread, and that the priest, they'd be up there for a week, and then the priest, had to eat it. But now I'm going to bring up this last little portion of in the 24th chapter, the 10th, about blasphemy. Because now we had things about holiness and about days observance and everything. And now we're going to deal with other civil things. And they talk about the oil of lamp in the beginning of the chapter. But oil for the lamp, I'm going to pass on through all that. And the showbread. And to tell you about the showbread, how that should be done up as well. And to tell you what it's for. But in the 10th verse of the 24th chapter, it says, and the son of an Israelite woman whose father was an Egyptian went out among the children of Israel, and the son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp. And the son of the Israelitish woman blasphemed the name, and cursed, and they brought him unto Moses. All right. So some books might say blaspheme on, the name of God, and curse. So now, and it goes on and saying they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shulamith, the daughter of Debri of the tribe of Dan. And they put him in ward, that it might be declared unto them at the mouth of the Lord. So now we have, this is the second time a guy's apprehended in our history. First one gathering sticks, on Shabbat. Now we got this guy here. And one of the things is that if you have an issue with another brother, it says, a son striving with a man. So that makes you think already that the status quo is a disrespect going on already, because this guy said this is a man of Israel and this is a son of a woman. the man had to be born from somebody. So why they call this guy here the son of Shulamite, the son of an Egyptian, as opposed, a man of Israel, in that status. So we got to pay attention to the status quo at that. And then if your issue is with the man, why would you blaspheme and curse the name of God? I mean, me and you are at odds. Me and you are fighting. How you gonna bring somebody else in it? You know what I mean? When me and you have these issues. And what the struggle is about is not important. It's not even brought up about what the struggle is about. How does confrontation come about at all? And then this is the only part in the scriptures that you find. I think I found another part, but anyway, one of the few parts in the scriptures, if it's only about maybe 2 times you might find it, that the term Israelite is used there, which is Yisraeli and Yisraelite. So you got the masculine and the feminine used right here in this particular portion. When people say, well, we don't see Israelites in the scripture, the term, but the term is written right here in this here episode. The man of Israel is called Yisraeli, and the woman is called Yisraelite. And that's the actual term for it. Just like we say Ka'anit, Bushit, like that. So, we call them guys, and Bushit, the Jebusites and all that. So all them Ikes and stuff like that. We just got E at the end in the Hebrew. So here it is that so the issue that they're fighting about is not even important. And if you go into the meaning of the names of the people, the woman's name, her father's name, and the tribe that's he from. There. And then you got to say, okay, how did we have this Egyptian impregnating this Israelite sister? What was going on in this area here? So that's a whole nother area. And he's part of the Exodus. And then what would be his gripe? So it's a lot of talk about in commentaries on the gripe. But we could come up with plenty of, gripes. But this is something that tell you, well, why would they be going at it? When Moses started off his thing, when, he seen an Egyptian beating up on the Israelite. And then he say the Egyptian, and then he seen Israelites fighting one another. Now you got just a reversal, guys striving together. That's Egyptian and Israelites again. All right. So now Moses is not going to act rash, but it's a serious individual because they lock him up and then lock the Israelite man up because of what he said. And so we read here, and what's interesting, I'm going to finish up in this part here. And saying, the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, bring forth him that had cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curses his God shall bear his sin. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well as a stranger, as the homeborn. When he blasphemed the name, shall he be put to death. Now, what's important, I want to point out a little small nuance here. And I'm going to go back to the 15th, because sometimes I might speak a little fast. All right. And it said, and thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curses his God shall bear his sin. That's different now. That means you should have respect for whatever God you worship. That's what it's saying. Whatever God you worship, if it's Lottie Beat Bop, whatever the case is, Hootie Doo, you're supposed to have respect for him because that's your God. So respect goes a long way. So you're supposed to be respectful. That's the first thing God bringing out. And he that blasphemes the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. Say, you blaspheme now, me now. I'm going to strap it right away. So they're saying that this is a whole nother level because now I'm real. I'm not a fictitious character. I'm real. I can do something about this. You know what I mean? Because you act like I'm not even here. And this is the same individual that witnessed Mount Torah, witnessed God speaking. And yet he got the nerve to talk about God that hard, when we get in this law here. Because remember, All this is being taught. After we have the Mishkan stood up. So they already had the thing in the wilderness. They already had God speaking from Mount Sinai. We already came across the Yam Su. He already know what happened with the, with the Egyptians and stuff when they crossed over. He made it across. He ain't thankful enough that he made it across. That's something. And it goes to show you it's the male that determine the nationality and not your mother. So, later on, centuries later, they had, well, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. And that's only dealing with ideology, religious ideology. But it's the man that determines, and the mother was a full-fledged Israelite because he gave her father name in his tribe, And what's interesting here is that God hold you responsible for even talking against the God you say you're supposed to worship. Because if you don't respect the God you claim to worship, then how you going to respect me? That's why honor father and mother is important, and with the Decalogue, because if we don't honor them, how you going to honor God? So this is brought out right here in this particular point. And it says, and all the congregation surely stone him, as well as the stranger, stone him, as well the stranger as the homeborn, when he blasphemed the name, shall be put to death. Not only the stranger going to be stoned, but the stranger could throw a stone too. Because I'm on the right side of the issue. I may not be an Israelite by seed and blood, but you don't talk about the God I serve. So, so they're going to throw a rock upside his head. And it says, and he that smiteth any man mortally shall surely be put to death. All right. That means getting in fights, you got to watch it. You got to watch how you go and get in rumbles. It said, and he that smiteth a beast mortally shall make it good life for life. And then it goes on the last part of it. Let me finish this out. And if a man maim his neighbor, as he had done, so it shall be done to him. Breach for breach, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, as he had maimed a man, so shall it be rendered unto him. And he that killeth a beast shall make it good, and he that killeth a man shall be put to death. Ye shall have one manner of law, as well for the stranger as for the homeborn. For I am the Lord, your God. And Moses spoke to the children of Israel, and they brought forth him that had cursed out of the camp, and stoned him with stones. And the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses. Wow, that's a long time before he got actually stoned. All this law is being transmitted now. Let's say y'all better watch yourselves here. I want to keep the record straight. Because y'all have these issues with one another, and then it could go out of hand. And then it can mushroom. So if you're a stranger or Israelite born, say, look at. You're in my presence. You got to be aware of how you deal with one another. And it's not, and it's not the lex talionis that most people think eye for eye, and stuff like that. Usually compensation, but that's another discussion that you could bring with the teachers. I hope you got something of what I said. Any mistakes been my own. And I greet everybody with a Shalom Aleichem and an early Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Torah about, can't hear, oh, my bad. Give me a second. Forgot to unmute. Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik. Thank you for your continuous efforts and what you put forth, and the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Creator has blessed you with. And thank you all for joining us. Don't forget that tomorrow, when you wake up in the morning, we will be heading to 120 Hamilton Avenue, and that will be where we will be having the Unity Shabbat that we have annually. So come out and be with us, and come and have a good time and support. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom. Everyone have a good Shabbat night sleep. Sure. Hallelujah. Shalom, family. Mark your calendars for an extraordinary day of unity and spiritual elevation. Congregation Beit D.C.B invites you to the annual Unity Shabbat Kum on Saturday, May 24th, 2025. Where? At Shelf Lofts, Brooklyn, 120 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. This day is dedicated to praising and glorifying the Most High YAH, bringing together congregations, guests, and truth seekers in a celebration of unity, love, peace, and harmony. Join us for heartfelt prayers, inspiring teachings, and uplifting music that will resonate with your soul. Be part of this transformative experience that strengthens our community bonds and deepens our spiritual connections. For more information and to reserve your spot, call us at 347-622-9090 or email us at info@baydcb.org. Let's come together in faith and fellowship at the Unity Shabbat Kum. You won't want to miss it. Shalom.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth,